I was the supporting male lead in a redemption novel. In my past life, the female lead, who had been with me for 7 years, unceremoniously dumped me and fell for my illegitimate half-brother. She glared at me resentfully. If it weren't for you clinging to me, I would have been with your brother long ago, reborn into this life. I looked at the furious girl before me, my eyes filled with disgust. Victoria Hayes, you're living off the scholarship I provide. What right do you have to point fingers at me? Chapter 1. When I opened my eyes, I found myself back at my grandmother's birthday banquet. It was at this very banquet in my previous life that my father brought home his illegitimate son, Ethan Clark, and publicly forced my mother to acknowledge him as part of the Clark family. What shocked and pained me most was that the girl I loved most, Victoria Hayes, stood by Ethan's side, accusing me of being inhuman. She claimed her dear Ethan had wandered outside for 16 years, and now that he had finally come home, I was being ruthless by refusing to accept his identity. In my past life, because I cared too much for her, I acknowledged Ethan. My mother, devastated by my weakness, fell ill from anger. This time, faced with the same situation, I wouldn't make the same mistake. I coldly observed Victoria Hayes, who was currently shielding Ethan Clark, my voice laced with ice. Since when is it the place of an outsider like you to meddle in my family's affairs? You're living off the scholarship I provide. Haven't you learned even the most basic respect for your benefactor? Seeing his sweetheart being berated by me, Ethan immediately stepped forward, protectively shielding her. Brother, Victoria isn't an outsider, she's my girlfriend. I won't let you talk to her like that. I looked at him mockingly, my dark eyes filled with disdain. And what gives you the right? I'm your girlfriend's benefactor, her daddy, so to speak. Doesn't that make me your daddy too, in a way? Don't you know how to treat your elders? Hearing this, the surrounding guests looked between the two of them, their eyes glinting with amusement. Ethan's face turned livid, wanting to retort but finding himself speechless. Because his girlfriend, Victoria Hayes, was indeed a student I sponsored. I met Victoria in middle school and fell for her at first sight. Learning about her poor family background, I covered all her living expenses and tuition fees. After a moment of silence, Ethan turned to our father standing nearby. Dad. I followed his gaze to my father and asked mockingly, Dad, are you planning to let this kind of person into our Clark family home today? My words silenced the entire banquet hall. Father's face turned ashen. He probably hadn't expected me to be so direct. I curled my lip into a cold smile, staring him down. In my past life, I was too considerate of their feelings, allowing him to push my mother to her death step by step and steal everything that was rightfully mine. This life, I wouldn't repeat that tragedy. Sincere Clark, how dare you speak like that? Have you forgotten I'm your father? My father trembled with rage, raising his hand to strike me. I easily caught his wrist, my gaze icy. Dad, the older you get, the shorter your temper seems to become. Don't be angry. Let me handle these minor matters. I glanced at my assistant, Miles Vance, standing nearby. Giving him a subtle look, he immediately approached with 2 men and firmly escorted my father away. Once they left, I glanced at my mother, who remained indifferent to everything, and then at Ethan Clark, a slight smile playing on my lips. Ethan Clark, people can be poor, but they shouldn't lack ambition. You show up here with no proof. Why should I believe you're my father's illegitimate son? What if all this today is just an act staged by you and father to try and swindle the Clark family fortune? Chapter 2. Cornering the dogs, Ethan's face flushed red, then turned pale at my words. Just as he was about to speak, Victoria's furious voice cut in first. Sincere Clark, do you think everyone is as shameless as you are? I gave a mocking smile, my eyes filled with contempt. Victoria Hayes, you take my scholarship money, show no gratitude, and even bite the hand that feeds you. Have all those years of education gone to waste? Truly, the spawn of homewreckers like you never have any decency standing before me. Victoria's pupils constricted upon hearing this, her face instantly draining of color. She pointed a trembling finger at me, her eyes reddening. "Sincere Clark, how could you say that about me, you—" Before she could finish, I impatiently turned to my assistant. "Today is supposed to be a happy occasion. I don't want to hear any more barking." Miles understood immediately and signaled 4 men forward. They swiftly dragged Ethan and Victoria away. They tried to shout, but Miles quickly gagged them with towels. I calmly turned back to the onlookers, explaining politely, "My apologies. My grandmother's banquet was unfortunately disturbed by 2 irrelevant individuals. Please forgive any lack of hospitality." The guests waved their hands, indicating their understanding, and the banquet hall soon returned to its lively atmosphere. When the guest of honor, my grandmother, Matilda Clark, made her appearance, she looked at me with deep meaning in her eyes but said nothing more. She didn't know that the 2 troublemakers were currently tied up by my assistant, locked away in the small attic. The world I live in is a novel. I am the supporting male character in this redemption story, and Victoria Hayes is the female lead. As for my illegitimate half-brother, Ethan Clark, he is naturally the male lead. The female lead, Victoria, endured humiliation by staying with me for 7 years, spending my money, enjoying a privileged life, only to unhesitatingly get together with the male lead, Ethan, upon meeting him again. Cheating was one thing, but Victoria actually believed that if it weren't for me, Ethan wouldn't have ended up in his predicament. Later, they conspired together, plotting against my family's fortune, leaving me penniless and homeless on the streets. Even then, they didn't stop tormenting me. They orchestrated my committal to a mental institution, turning me into a research subject for psychiatric studies until I showed no signs of life. Perhaps because my fate was so tragic, when I opened my eyes again, I was reborn at my grandmother's birthday banquet. This time, I wouldn't let history repeat itself. The banquet continued. On the surface, I maintained a composed smile, mingling with the guests, but inwardly, I was already plotting my next moves. As the banquet neared its end, my grandmother publicly announced that she was giving me her 35% stake in the Clark Corporation. I looked at my grandmother in shock, opening my mouth to speak, but she patted my shoulder, saying affectionately, "Sincere, Grandma believes you will do very well." This hadn't happened in my previous life. While I was still stunned, my mother, Isabel Clark, approached, her gaze soft as she looked at me. "Your grandmother has always valued bloodline. You handled the situation at the banquet very well. We have high hopes for you." Meeting my mother's gaze, my eyes unexpectedly warmed. My father, Reginald Clark, was a notorious playboy in high society. That's why, despite being the sole son, he held no shares in the Clark Corporation. The family feared diluting the bloodline and letting the company fall into outsider hands. After receiving Grandma's shares, I became the largest shareholder in Clark Corp., second only to my mother. In my past life, after being confronted by Victoria, I had acknowledged Ethan out of misguided pity for her. At that time, both Grandma and Mother looked at me with deep disappointment, but ultimately said nothing and simply left. After the banquet ended, I went to the small attic alone. Chapter 3. Settling scores individually in the small attic, Ethan and Victoria were gagged with rags, their hands and feet bound. They struggled continuously, trying to escape. I pushed the door open, saw the pathetic state of the 2, and gave a mocking smile. I gestured for Miles to remove the gags. Ethan spat disgustedly several times, then glared at me, his eyes filled with venom. "Sincere Clark, you madman, let us go now," I scoffed, walking up to them and looking down from my superior position. "Weren't you both quite arrogant earlier? Scared now?" Victoria tilted her head back, glaring furiously. She warned coldly, "Sincere Clark, you'd better let us go right now and arrange for Ethan to be formally accepted into the family. Otherwise, I'll never forgive you." I shrugged nonchalantly. "Your forgiveness means nothing to me. What's important now is that if you keep up this attitude, you won't be eating for many days." Before Victoria could start shouting abuse, Miles deftly stuffed the rag back into her mouth. I watched Victoria's eyes widen, the curve of my lips deepening unconsciously. I really wonder, after all these years of education, who taught you to be so ungrateful. Under my sponsorship all these years, Victoria had lived practically like a debutante. For someone used to a pampered life, being suddenly cast down was naturally worse than death. I turned to Ethan, tied up nearby, my mind flashing back to the events of my past life. In that life, he had instigated Victoria to get close to me, then drugged me and had me committed to the mental institution. I took 2 steps closer to him and kicked him hard in the gut. Ethan Clark, did you really think just by getting into the banquet hall at Grandma's party the Clark family would accept you? Let me tell you, in the Clark family, father's word means nothing, and gossip doesn't affect us. Since you're so eager to join the Clark family, I'll give you 2 choices. My eyes, filled with amusement, scanned them both. 1, kneel down and beg me right now. 2, I stop sponsoring Victoria. Let her go work off her debt in a club, and in exchange you get to enter the Clark family. After saying this, I glanced sideways at Miles. He understood immediately, stepped forward, and removed the gag from Victoria's mouth. Victoria hesitated for a long moment, then turned to the slumped Ethan beside her. Ethan, you've endured so much hardship for so many years already. This little bit more won't matter, right? I turned my gaze to Ethan, a smile playing on my lips. I stepped closer and punched him squarely on the nose. Ah, Ethan's agonized cry echoed through the attic. Ignoring it, I landed punch after punch until his nose was clearly broken. In my past life, they conspired to send me to the asylum, where I was beaten and humiliated daily. Breaking his nose now was just collecting a small amount of interest. It wasn't excessive at all. Ethan was beaten black and blue, blood streaming from his nose, cowering terrified in the corner. I turned to Victoria, who was glaring daggers at me, and gave a bloodthirsty smirk. Why are you so angry? Weren't you the one telling him to endure it a little longer? The next second, I took the damp towel Miles handed me, meticulously wiped my hands, and casually tossed the towel onto Ethan's face. Get Ethan a doctor. Don't let him die just yet. Also, throw this champion of justice, Miss Hayes, into the basement. Let her reflect properly on her actions. I turned and left the attic. As I walked back into the main hall of the Clark residence, my mother happened to be coming downstairs. There was a faint blood stain on the hem of her dress. She elegantly massaged her wrist joint. He won't be getting up for the next 2 weeks. I knew the he she referred to was father. Chapter 4. The useless father and his illegitimate son mother noticed the redness on my right knuckles, undisguised concern in her eyes. You could have let the staff handle this sort of thing. Why dirty your own hands? I glanced down at my hand and replied softly, it's nothing. If I didn't teach Ethan a lesson myself, the anger inside me couldn't be vented. Soon after, Butler Thompson entered the hall and announced respectfully, Madam, young master, Mr. Davis is here, show him in. After Mother's indifferent reply, she sat down on the sofa. Sincere, Mr. Davis is here for you to sign the share transfer agreement. From now on, you'll need to learn how to handle Clark Corporation matters. Mr. Davis entered the hall and quickly presented a share transfer agreement to my mother. Mrs. Clark, here is the share transfer agreement. Please review it. Mother glanced at me. I immediately understood, took the agreement from Mr. Davis, scanned it quickly, and signed my name with a flourish. Once I signed, Mr. Davis was quickly escorted out of the house. Mother looked at me pointedly. Those two, how do you plan to deal with them? Since Ethan Clark is so desperate to return to the Clark family, let him come back. Mother raised a delicate eyebrow but remained silent. I smiled faintly and continued. As for the other one, the woman, I'll keep her locked up for a few days, then send her to a club to make her work off her debt. Seeing the ruthlessness in my eyes, Mother nodded with satisfaction. It seems our Sincere has truly grown up. I sighed helplessly. Mom, using Grandma's birthday banquet as a test for me, wasn't that a bit reckless? It was your grandmother's idea. Mother smiled, picked up the teacup from the coffee table, and took a delicate sip. Besides, if things didn't escalate, how could we solve the problem all at once? I shook my head with a small laugh. I knew Mother was afraid I'd become too deeply entangled, so she deliberately allowed Grandma to proceed this way, serving as a wake-up call for me. Otherwise, with Mother's methods, the moment Ethan's identity was revealed, she would have had him dealt with secretly, let alone allowed him to openly appear with Father at Grandma's birthday banquet. In my past life, influenced by the novel's plot, I let Ethan enter the Clark family, which disappointed both Grandma and Mother. This life, my decisive and ruthless handling of the situation was evident to them. Thus, I received all of Grandma's shares, and they trusted me to make the Clark Corporation even better. The future leader of the Clark family couldn't afford to be indecisive. Mother's gaze softened slightly as she looked at me. "Sincere, I'll leave the matter of the illegitimate son to you. I'll handle it properly." As I replied, my eyelids lowered, my long dark eyes filled with chilling determination. In our city, everyone knew my father was a notorious playboy, with no real power whatsoever. But Ethan didn't know that. So, as Ethan was nearing recovery, Father went to him and successfully brainwashed him again. They believed that once Grandma and Mother were gone, Ethan, the illegitimate son, could step up and fight for the Clark shares. They didn't know the will had already been written. People without vision or perspective only focus on fighting over the scraps on the table. Such people never end well. That's why in the previous life, even though Father and Ethan managed to seize control of the Clark Corporation, they ultimately couldn't hold on to the business. Chapter 5. An ultimatum in my past life. While I suffered sleepless nights tormented by patients in the mental asylum, Ethan and Victoria came to visit me. Victoria ground her high heel onto my fingers, looking down at me. "Sincere Clark, if you had just let Ethan be recognized by the family earlier, someone as kind as him would never have let you end up like this." She had someone throw a bowl of spoiled food in front of me, saying contemptuously, "Sincere Clark, you're nothing but a lapdog kept by the Clark family. If you eat this bowl of food like a dog today, I'll have someone take you out of this asylum for a few days' rest." My eyes were bloodshot as I glared at her, then slowly bent down before her. Victoria thought I was actually going to eat the spoiled food, her eyes gleaming with malicious delight. My gaze hardened. I lunged forward, pinning her beneath me, and thrust the sharpened point of a toothbrush I had ground down fiercely towards her heart. The toothbrush hit her chest, but the plastic was too fragile. It broke before it could kill her. Ethan shoved me to the ground, yelling furiously, "Sincere Clark, are you crazy? That's murder," I laughed maniacally, roaring back at them. "When you sent me to the mental asylum, didn't you think that was murder too?" Later, Victoria was rushed to emergency care, while I was placed under stricter guard by the asylum nurses. The next time I saw Victoria was just before I was about to be taken to the operating table for an experimental procedure. She glared at me with venomous hatred. "Sincere Clark, you should be grateful we're allowing you to be a test subject for this psychiatric research. At least it counts as accumulating some good karma for yourself now. With everything starting over, if I didn't do something to them, how could I face the me from my past life?" Initially, when Miles had someone send spoiled food to Victoria, she refused to eat out of pride and self-respect. After 3 days, she couldn't bear the hunger anymore and devoured the spoiled food. She ate and vomited simultaneously. Since all her bodily needs were confined to the basement, the entire space became unbearably foul. Ethan's reaction towards her evolved from initial shock to eventual apathy. It seemed my illegitimate half-brother wasn't as deeply in love with Victoria as he had appeared at Grandma's birthday banquet after all. If he truly loved her, how could he stand by and watch me humiliate her repeatedly right under his nose? When Grandma and Mother learned about this, they didn't react much, merely instructing Miles to give her some antibiotics to ensure she didn't die from the conditions in the basement. Time passed quickly, and soon it was time for the new school term to begin. Father, as if grooming Ethan to compete against my mother, arranged numerous tutoring sessions for him over the break, and enrolled him in the same elite school as me before the term started. Ethan smugly appeared before me, holding his new school ID card. "Sincere Clark, we're classmates now." I gave a mocking smirk and signaled Miles. He brought the disheveled, reeking Victoria out from the basement and threw her down in front of Ethan. "It's been a while since you two saw each other. Care to catch up?" Ethan recoiled in disgust from the foul-smelling Victoria, his hands clenching unconsciously at his sides. Before he could speak, I drawled, "Now an opportunity presents itself. There's only one spot available for school. You two discuss it and decide who gets to go." Chapter 6. Revenge begins. Victoria Hayes. "If you're not the one going to school, then you'll need to go work at a club to pay off your debts." My casually delivered words made Victoria's face change instantly. She scrambled towards Ethan, grabbing his trouser leg with her filthy hands. "Ethan, I know you care about me. You haven't come to see me all this time. There must have been a reason. Now the chance is right here. Let me go to school, please. With my academic progress, I can definitely get into a good university. But you're a young master of the Clark family. It doesn't matter if you go to university or not. The Clark family won't let you starve. Besides, you don't even like studying, and your grades aren't good. Sending you to school would be a waste of resources." Hearing this, Ethan's expression shifted instantly. Realizing her mistake, Victoria gripped his trouser leg tighter. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I was just too anxious and misspoke. Please don't hold it against me. Let me go study first, and you can take the adult college entrance exam later. You're so smart, you'll definitely get into the university of your dreams." Ethan's face was grim, his gaze cold as he stared at Victoria. "Let go." Victoria trembled, tightening her grip again. "Ethan, we've been together for so long. You can't really watch me go to a club, can you? Those disgusting old men in there, Get lost," Ethan roared, finally snapping and kicking the woman before him away. After Victoria let go in pain, Ethan immediately turned and ran upstairs, his steps frantic. Lying on the ground, wincing, Victoria screamed after his retreating figure. "Ethan Clark, are you even a man? You used to promise to protect me, to ensure I'd never worry. Is this your idea of responsibility? You bastard, I must have been blind to fall for such a disgusting man. I curse you to die a horrible death, get hit by a car. The moment you step outside sitting on the sofa, I watched the formerly lovey-dovey couple, now at each other's throats, clicking my tongue. So this was the great love story of the male and female leads in the redemption novel. So fragile. Male lead, female lead, it was all bullshit. Just selfish individuals cloaked in morality, standing on the corpses of others, deceiving themselves into a happy embrace. Truly nauseating, I stood up and walked over to Victoria, using the toe of my shoe to lift her chin, forcing her to meet my gaze. "Is this the love you betrayed me for, the love you pursued?" Victoria turned to look at me, her eyes filled with hatred and resentment. "Sincere Clark, if it weren't for you, how would I have ended up like this? No matter what you say, you still have to repay the money you spent of mine." With that, I raised my hand slightly. Miles understood and, with two others, hauled Victoria away, sending her directly to the club. As for Ethan, he went to school with me. He thought that with father backing him, attending the same school as me meant he could surely thrive there. But in reality, everyone in our circle knew the true situation within the Clark family. Ethan arrogantly waited for the school's elite to court his favor. He didn't know that my revenge had just begun. Chapter 7. Publicly humiliating the illegitimate son in my past life, Ethan was acknowledged by the Clark family during Grandma's birthday banquet. His status as an illegitimate son became widely known in high society circles. So when he transferred to the school, the wealthy heirs and heiresses looked down on him, considering even speaking to him beneath them. Only classmates unaware of the situation would approach him, drawn by his looks and demeanor. But inevitably, upon learning he was illegitimate, these classmates would adopt looks of disdain and quickly distance themselves. Initially, Ethan would argue with them, trying to salvage his dignity and status, but after repeated instances, he grew numb. This situation persisted until Victoria helped him cheat his way into the top 10 on a minor test, which slightly altered things. But in this life he was alone. He had to endure this suffering by himself. As I entered the classroom, I saw a group of classmates huddled together, discussing something. Approaching, I overheard their conversation. "Did you hear? There's a transfer student coming to our class today."
Transfer student?
"Whose family? Boy or girl?" "A boy. It's the Clark family's illegitimate son, Ethan Clark." "Illegitimate? How dare someone like that show his face at school? Like mother, like son. If the mother has no shame, the son's skin must be thick too." I gave a mocking smirk and walked past them towards my seat. Not long after I sat down, Ethan arrived. The moment he entered the classroom, one of the young masters who disliked him spoke up mockingly. "How dare an illegitimate son like you come to study here? Didn't your previous teachers teach you any manners or shame?" Ethan clenched his fists at his sides, sticking his neck out to retort. "Is that how your teachers taught you to use the concepts of manners and shame? At least our families are clean, unlike some people," the young master drawled sarcastically. He exchanged glances with the others who had been gossiping earlier, and they began to jeer loudly. Ethan's face cycled through shades of green and white as he listened, finally unable to contain his anger any longer, lashing back with sarcasm. "Some people think they're superior just because their families have a bit of dirty money. Little do they know, without their families, they're nothing." As his words fell, the classroom instantly went silent. After a moment of disbelief, everyone looked at him with anger simmering in their eyes. They seemed stunned that an illegitimate son would dare say such things. I leaned back in my chair, my gaze deepening as I watched him. Ethan truly was a newborn calf fearing no tiger. Every single person in this classroom was someone not to be trifled with, and he, upon arrival, had managed to offend a large swath of them. I slowly stood up and walked towards Ethan, stopping about 3 steps away. He watched me warily, afraid I might suddenly strike him. I gave a mocking smirk, took another step forward, and kicked him squarely in the abdomen. "If it weren't for relying on the Clark family, do you think you could even attend school here? As the Clark family's illegitimate son, you should have the awareness of one. Don't go around causing trouble under the Clark name." Ethan crumpled to the floor, clutching his stomach, looking at me in pain. The other students in the class, seeing me take action, had a flicker of excitement in their eyes. They had all heard about the incident at Madame Clark's birthday banquet, but later heard the Clark family had acknowledged this illegitimate son, leaving them unsure of the family's true stance. Now, seeing me directly assault him, they instantly understood. The illegitimate son might have been acknowledged, but he was still the same unimportant figure not worth associating with. I looked down at Ethan coldly. "Today is just a lesson. Behave yourself from now on. Don't let me see you causing trouble again." Ethan clutched his stomach, glaring at me through gritted teeth. "Sincere Clark, aren't you afraid Father will find out you—" I cut him off mockingly. "Have you completely forgotten what happened at Grandma's banquet?" Chapter 8. The mire and false hope. If you've forgotten those lessons, I don't mind teaching you again, to help you remember. At my words, Ethan likely recalled the torment inflicted upon Victoria, and he visibly shuddered. He opened his mouth but ultimately said nothing, silently returning to his seat. In the following days, Ethan became much more subdued, no longer flaunting himself as he had upon arrival, quietly enduring everyone's scorn and ridicule. This school was, by design, an elite institution created by wealthy families to groom the next generation of heirs. Therefore, students here not only had regular academic subjects, but also needed to study business management, economics, and other specialized knowledge. The school's final assessment weighted academic and specialized knowledge equally. The specialized knowledge assessment was done in groups, with members collaborating on a project for final evaluation. After Ethan's illegitimate status spread through the class, absolutely no one wanted him on their team during group formation. In the end, a teacher had to intervene and place him in a group that was short a member. The members of that group were displeased but had to cooperate with Ethan to complete the project for the sake of their grades. They assigned Ethan the simplest task, yet unexpectedly, he couldn't even complete that correctly, making numerous mistakes. Consequently, their group deservedly received the lowest score in the class. When the group members saw their project's score, their faces turned grim. The group leader, Penelope Ainsworth, heiress to the Ainsworth family, was furious and mocked coldly. Even a slow bird knows to start flying early. Some people's status might be questionable, but they don't even try, just dragging others down. Exactly being grouped with him is the worst luck imaginable. If it weren't for him, how could we have gotten such a low score? Useless trash, the other group members chimed in, their words dripping with dissatisfaction and contempt for Ethan. Ethan clenched his fists, retorting angrily, "If I had received the same quality of education as you all since childhood, I would definitely perform just as well. Life isn't fair from birth. It's my first time making mistakes. It's nothing. I'll definitely do better next time." "Oh, is that so? Then tell us now, how exactly will you do better?" Penelope sneered, her face full of disdain. Ethan opened his mouth but found himself unable to say anything. He had grown up outside the family, and the education and resources he received couldn't compare to these people. The gap between him and them wasn't just about status and position, but more profoundly about perspective and knowledge. Seeing his pathetic state, the other group members became even more disgusted. What a waste. Being in the same group as him is truly rotten luck. He talks such a big game, but still doesn't know how to improve. Are we going to have the lowest grades this semester because of someone like him? Can we band together and kick him out of the group? Thank goodness he's not our business partner, or the company would go bankrupt. He's not even our family. Why should we bear the losses? He causes no. I'm going to talk to the teacher and switch listening to their relentless criticism. Ethan's face grew paler and paler. Finally, glaring at them resentfully, he turned and ran out of the classroom. I leaned back in my chair, watching his retreating figure with amusement, my eyes cold and deep. In my past life, I suffered indescribable agony in the mental asylum. In this life, they would repay me by experiencing a fate worse than death. I would personally watch Ethan and Victoria, these two selfish individuals, willingly walk into a mire, struggle desperately within it, and just when they think they can finally crawl out, I will crush them mercilessly. After all, nothing is more torturous than being trapped in a swamp, wading through it, thinking you finally touched new hope, only to watch that hope be shattered by someone else. Chapter 9. Opportunity Knocks. Ethan knew his father's position in the Clark family was precarious, so he never mentioned the incidents at school. He didn't want to cause trouble for his father or risk incurring his displeasure. So when his father asked about his situation at school, he simply smiled and replied, "Everything is great. I really like the new school and my new friends." Hearing this, father nodded with satisfaction, seemingly pleased with Ethan's answer. He patted Ethan's shoulder and said earnestly, "Ethan, you must work hard, strive for good grades at school, and show everyone your capabilities." Ethan pressed his lips together and nodded firmly. Sitting opposite him, I didn't expose his lies, merely watching him with a meaningful look in my eyes. In the past life, Ethan managed to turn things around in class because Victoria secretly tutored him. This life, he had no ability, no grades, no business acumen, and carried the stigma of being the unwelcome, illegitimate son of the Clark family. He couldn't possibly cause much trouble. In the days that followed, wherever Ethan went, he could feel the disdain and mockery from those around him. They overtly or covertly ridiculed his status and belittled his abilities, making his life at school incredibly difficult. I watched the farce unfolding around him with cold indifference, diverting some of my focus for revenge towards Victoria. In the past life, after demonstrating business talent at school, Victoria had received offers from several aristocratic scions, but she refused them all. By then, she had already latched onto Ethan and saw no need to compromise for other opportunities. Later, After entering the city's top university, she showed astonishing aptitude for finance, completing 3 years' worth of coursework in just 1 year. Her ability to help Ethan devour the Clark Corporation within a year was based on this remarkable business talent. After my rebirth, sending Victoria to the club wasn't enough to ease my concerns about her potential. Fearing she might rise again unnoticed, a week after she entered the club, I instructed the manager, Helen Carter, to initiate the first step of my plan for Victoria. Helen told Victoria, "Victoria, you have outstanding personal qualities. You could probably make a lot of money as an influencer." Hearing this, Victoria reacted like a drowning person grasping at a final straw, clutching Helen's hand tightly, her face alight with excitement. "Manager Carter, can I really?" Helen smiled warmly, patting her hand. "It's possible, yes, but I won't recommend you to my sister's influencer agency for free. How much money do you want?" Victoria asked, calming down and beginning to feel the situation was somewhat unreal. After all, she had just arrived at the club. How could she be so lucky as to immediately encounter someone offering a lifeline? Helen didn't mind her suspicion, smiling. "I want you to double your performance results for the club next month. Help me beat the managers from the other clubs in next month's competition and win that $1 million bonus." "That sounds like it only benefits you," Victoria observed, her initial enthusiasm fading, her eyes cooling as she looked at the woman before her. Helen chuckled. "What if it also means escaping his control for good?" Before Victoria could respond, Helen added with another smile, "My friend is my actual sister, Jade Carter. She's basically the original influencer. She posts a few videos, does some live streams, and easily makes over $500,000 a month. If I didn't think you had potential, I wouldn't risk this." Seeing Victoria still unconvinced, she added casually, "Either way, it's no great loss to me. If you're worried, just forget I said anything." With that, Helen turned and walked away. Victoria watched her retreating back, torn by indecision, afraid of making the wrong choice. Chapter 10. A Fate Worse Than Death. 2 days later, Victoria sought out Helen Carter. After careful consideration, she concluded that Helen probably had no reason to deceive her. After all, if she refused, Helen would simply find another target. What she didn't know was that agreeing meant falling right into my trap. Her innate business talent would gradually erode as she fell into the day-to-day grind of an employee mindset, working for others. Her own strategic thinking would slowly wither away. This was my plan, a way to buy myself time. During this period, I would expand the Clark Corporation's business empire as much as possible. As long as Victoria missed the window for the next few years' booming industries, she would never have the chance to rise again. Eager to escape my control as soon as possible, Victoria, after recovering slightly at the club, impatiently found Helen Carter and told her she was ready to start working. Helen feigned concern upon hearing this. "Victoria, you still look a bit pale. Are you sure you don't need a few more days' rest?" Victoria's hand clenched slightly at her side, a flicker of emotion crossing her eyes. "Manager Carter, I know you're concerned about my health, but resting forever isn't a solution. I really want to meet the performance target soon." Helen nodded, her smile becoming even more encouraging. "All right then, I'll arrange work for you starting tomorrow." She knew Victoria approached her solely to leave this place sooner, and since this was all part of our plan, she certainly wouldn't stop her. From the outset, I had told Helen that we first needed to stabilize Victoria's mindset, make her feel that working at the club wasn't so bad, and get her to willingly stay and work there. Helen was smart and understood my meaning immediately. The clients she arranged for Victoria were young, handsome men, polite, respectful, and generous spenders. Gradually, Victoria discovered that this job wasn't as difficult as she had imagined. She began to relax her initial tension, settling into work at the club for the time being. 2 weeks later, after reporting on the club situation, Helen carefully brought up Victoria's status while gauging my reaction. "Mr. Clark, Victoria Hayes has been entertaining clients at the club for 2 weeks now. She spent the night with clients on 4 occasions. Hearing this, a slight smile touched my lips, the darkness in my eyes deepening. In the past life, Victoria Hayes was a formidable female CEO in the business world, insightful, resourceful, decisive, and sharp. I never thought that in this life she would so quickly and willingly choose to become a working girl. How ironic. I leaned back on the sofa, lightly tapping my fingers on the armrest, contemplating the next steps. Victoria had fallen into the trap I designed. Now I needed to ensure she sank deeper and deeper, unable to ever climb out. As for Ethan, I couldn't relax my guard either. Although he was struggling at school now, if Victoria somehow contacted him secretly and helped him stage a comeback, all my efforts would be wasted. Thinking of this, I immediately picked up my phone and called Miles Vance. Have someone keep a close eye on Ethan Clark. Report any activity to me immediately. Miles responded promptly, Yes, Mr. Clark. After hanging up, I looked up at Helen Carter standing nearby. You'll be responsible for monitoring Victoria Hayes. Rest assured, Mr. Clark, I will handle it properly. After Helen's respectful reply, I waved her away to attend to her own matters. Once she left, I closed my eyes, planning my next moves. This life, I would make Ethan Clark and Victoria Hayes understand the meaning of a fate worse than death, the meaning of true despair. Chapter 11. Leveraging the situation in the following period, Mother began gradually handing over company affairs to me. I progressed from learning corporate management principles to tentatively managing departments, and eventually started overseeing the company itself. Seeing Mother systematically grooming me as her successor, Father's resentment towards me grew daily. One day at the dinner table, he finally lost his patience and lashed out. You're still young, spending all your time focused on the company. Have you forgotten you're still a student? My academic performance has always been stable. Father need not worry about me. I smiled as I replied, then slowly wiped my mouth. I'm finished eating. Please enjoy the rest of your meal. As soon as I left the dining room, my assistant, Miles Vance, fell into step beside me. CEO Clark, the discussion meeting for the latest project will be held at 10 a.m. in conference room 3. I nodded slightly and walked briskly towards the car waiting at the entrance. I could actually understand my father's feelings about how things had turned out. After all, who could calmly accept that billions in assets had nothing to do with them due to their own incompetence? He relied on my mother to manage the Clark Corporation, yet lacked the ability to run it himself. This was a huge humiliation for him, and this resentment drove him to continually invest effort in grooming Ethan. He wanted to build Ethan up to prove his own abilities surpassed my mother's. He started taking Ethan to business events, introducing him to his network of contacts. Perhaps due to attending numerous business functions, the media captured many photos of the father-son duo at banquets. Before long, Ethan Clark gained considerable fame. He became known to the public as young Mr. Clark, the most promising potential heir to the Clark Corporation fortune, handsome and capable. In reality, those within our social circle knew clearly that the true future heir of Clark Corp could only be me, already holding 35% of the shares. Later, acting on someone's advice, Ethan registered a social media account. He posted photos of himself, shared his study progress, diligently crafting an image of a well-connected, ambitious young man from a prestigious background. His posts were always accompanied by pictures of luxury watches and cars, attracting significant attention. Gradually, without him realizing it, the focus of his social media account shifted, becoming primarily a platform for flaunting expensive watches and cars. Unbeknownst to them, Mother arranged for Butler Thompson to regularly supply him with these luxury items. Exposed to such extravagance, Ethan slowly lost himself. People like them could only ever see superficial benefits, unaware that only knowledge and perspective allow one to survive in the cutthroat business world. Subsequently, Ethan shed the timid image he initially projected at school, becoming arrogant and overly confident. After his social media account gained some traction, fans attracted by his looks began staking out locations to photograph him. People at school noticed and sometimes mocked him to his face, But Ethan, basking in the feeling of being pursued, ignored them and continued his ways. While he basked in his limelight, I diligently learned the methods of managing a corporation. Once Ethan's social media account attracted a certain number of followers, the head of a newly established watch brand approached him, wanting him to endorse their products. He agreed and appeared in the brand's live stream. That day, appearing in the small brand's broadcast, he wore a custom suit, tie loosely draped, top button undone, exuding an air of casual, untamed confidence. The live stream exploded in popularity. Ethan's social media following surged again, and the small brand's owner was ecstatic as their brand recognition soared. His appearance disrupted the balance in the watch industry. Competitors seeking to crush the small brand began to employ leverage tactics, and I was the leverage they used. Chapter 12. Assaulting the illegitimate son, they dug up photos of me representing the Clark Corporation in business negotiations, and published a post comparing me and Ethan. The post's title was striking and provocative: Clark Corporation's true heir versus the Clark family's illegitimate son. Who shines brighter? The article conducted a comprehensive comparison between me and Ethan, from my decisive actions since taking over company affairs to Ethan's ignorance and crudeness at school, from my calm wisdom displayed in the business world to Ethan's superficial flaunting on social media. The post quickly went viral. Netizens overwhelmingly commented that Ethan was merely an embroidered pillow, attractive on the outside but useless within. They predicted that I was the true future leader of the Clark family, and even started a separate thread discussing the likelihood of me becoming the next head of the family. These posts gained traction for a few hours before being handled by the PR team I had arranged. That evening at dinner, Father publicly praised Ethan's competence in front of everyone. He declared, "Ethan is truly my son, such business acumen, making hundreds of thousands in sales right off the bat. With this ability, he'll succeed no matter what he does in the future." Grandma glanced at him, then pretended not to hear, turning to discuss tomorrow's breakfast options with the old butler. My mother simply offered a faint smile upon hearing this, saying nothing more. I kept my head down, eating my meal, not looking up at Father's smug expression. We all knew he was just seizing an opportunity to praise Ethan, desperate to prove he could cultivate an heir superior to me. Unfortunately for him, he didn't know that Ethan's sales success was merely due to the behind-the-scenes maneuvering by Mother and me. I slowly ate my food, thinking about reviewing the company's recent financial reports in the study later. Ethan's minor antics in the live stream barely registered on my radar, but I hadn't expected Ethan to take it so seriously and even flaunt it in my face. The next afternoon, after successfully closing a major deal, I returned home in a good mood and opened a bottle of red wine to celebrate. Bang! My bedroom door was suddenly kicked open. Turning around, I saw Ethan standing arrogantly in the doorway. I watched him impassively, the swirling motion of the wine in my glass uninterrupted. "This door costs $1 million. You broke it, you pay for it." Hearing my words, a flicker of anger crossed Ethan's eyes, but he forced himself to contain it. He strode directly up to me, glaring fiercely. "Sincere Clark, don't get too smug. Don't think just because you've achieved a little something at the company, the heir position is securely yours." I raised an eyebrow slightly, asking indifferently, "Surely an illegitimate son like you isn't aspiring to this position?" My question caught Ethan off guard, his face instantly turning livid. Furious, he swept the wine bottle I had placed on the table onto the floor, his dark eyes blazing with anger at me. I gently swirled the wine in my glass, asking coldly, "Were the lessons I gave you before not enough? Have you forgotten the past punishments so easily?" "If you've forgotten, I don't mind repeating them." Ethan, puffed up by recent adulation, couldn't tolerate being spoken to like this. Enraged, he raised his hand to strike me, but I anticipated him, kicking him hard in the abdomen first. "Ah!" Ethan collapsed to the ground in pain, his face momentarily paling. I gave a mocking smirk, walked forward swirling my wine glass, and then brutally smashed the glass against Ethan's forehead. Chapter 13. Stirring up trouble instantly, the skin on Ethan's forehead broke, and blood flowed down, staining half his face crimson. He clutched his forehead, looking at me in pain and disbelief, seemingly unable to comprehend that I would actually strike him. I looked down at him contemptuously, sneering. "Ethan Clark, have you learned your lesson now?" Ethan glared, eyes wide with fury, struggling to get up from the floor, clearly wanting to continue the fight. But as soon as he stood, I kicked him down again. He lay prone on the floor, gasping heavily, his eyes filled with resentment and rage. I couldn't be bothered with him anymore. Turning aside, I picked up a tissue and slowly wiped the red wine that had splattered onto my hand. "Sincere Clark, don't go too far," I glanced at him dismissively. "This is too far? You truly haven't seen anything yet." My gaze drifted to another wine glass sitting on a nearby shelf. As I walked towards the glass, Ethan, seemingly realizing my intention, scrambled backward, clutching his bleeding forehead in fear. That bottle of wine, I had paid a hefty price for it at auction. I hadn't even had a chance to enjoy it myself before Ethan smashed it. How could I possibly let him off easily for such an offense? I picked up the wine glass from the shelf, a cold smile playing on my lips, asking menacingly, "What, scared now?" Ethan's eyes widened, his body trembling slightly, yet he still tried to maintain a defiant front. "Sincere Clark, what else are you going to do?" I smirked coldly, walked up to him, gripped the wine glass tightly and smashed it towards him again. "Ah!" As Ethan's howl of pain echoed through the villa, the bloodthirsty smile on my lips widened. I stared at his blood-covered face, my eyes icy. "Did you really think gaining a little bit of fame put you anywhere near my level? Ethan Clark, you're just an illegitimate son. What right do you have to compare yourself to me? You've displeased me. All the supposed glory surrounding you will vanish like a bubble just like that." After saying this, I forcefully smashed the wine glass in my hand onto the floor in front of Ethan. With a loud crash, the glass shattered into pieces, shards flying up and cutting Ethan's face. My eyes grew colder. Losing patience for further conversation, I directly took out my phone and called Miles. "Come to my room and take out the trash." Miles acknowledged and soon arrived with 2 bodyguards. They seized Ethan and dragged him out like a carcass. That same night, all trending news related to Ethan Clark vanished from social media. The small watch brand that initially propelled him to fame also announced the termination of their contract with him after all. I was the ultimate owner of that small brand. Of course, starting that night, social media platforms began having the promotion of content related to Ethan. He was just an illegitimate son of the Clark family. Since I had personally approached the platform owners, why wouldn't they readily do me a favor and target Ethan a little? As for the major brands that had previously shown interest after seeing Ethan's successful endorsement, upon hearing the change in the wind, they all quickly reneged on their offers, completely denying any previous mention of collaboration. The next morning at 9, Miles was in my office, briefing me on the day's schedule as usual. At the end, he routinely updated me on Ethan's situation. After listening, I said impassively, "Keep a close eye on him. Don't let him cause any more trouble." But sometimes the more closely you watch someone, fearing they'll cause problems, the more determined they seem to be to stir things up. Chapter 14. Father loses all power after Ethan's reputation was ruined. Major watch and luxury car brands wouldn't dare approach him for endorsements anymore. The only collaboration offer he received now was from a seller of vulgar, lowbrow products. Initially, he was unwilling to stoop to endorsing such items, believing he still had a chance to make a comeback. The brand representative, afraid he'd refuse, made a bold move, offering an exorbitant commission. Just as Ethan was about to grit his teeth and decline, Mother instructed Butler Thompson to stop sending Ethan luxury watches and cars. I also had the black card Father gave him canceled. Suddenly deprived of the means to take photos, Ethan couldn't maintain updates on his social media account. An increasing number of followers started messaging him. asking when he would post again. This situation persisted for about a week. Netizens quickly realized something was wrong, and the tone of their private messages shifted. They asked him, "Ethan, have you run out of money for watches and cars? Did your family cut you off? Ethan, bro, are you not posting lately because you can't get the goods? Did you run out of money to buy these things? Fake if you're poor, just admit it, stop pretending." As things escalated, the comments under Ethan's old posts about studying hard and being ambitious were flooded with new negative remarks. This Ethan Clark, did he stop posting because he knows he can't afford watches anymore? Claims to be a top student, turns out he's just a fraud, no money. But loves to pretend exactly said he wanted to rely on his own efforts, but in the end, he still relied on family. Now that his family cut off his funding, the truth is out illegitimate son trying to build a persona. Now that the persona has collapsed, of course he has no money to buy things. These vicious comments were like sharp knives stabbing into Ethan's heart. He stared at the glaring words on his phone screen, hands gripping the device so tightly his knuckles turned white. He felt incredibly unwilling to accept this. He had worked so hard for so long, why did it still end up like this? Ethan took a deep breath, trying to calm himself and find a way to salvage his reputation. But he was now out of options. Unwilling to accept the lowbrow product endorsement, he turned to father for help. While my assistant was briefing me on the status of a subsidiary company, I was sitting in my office reviewing documents. CEO Clark, Mr. Reginald Clark, intends to fire VP Chen from the subsidiary. Hearing this, I angrily slammed my pen onto the desk. That's the only company under his control, and he wants to fire a key executive? Is he insane? When grandfather was alive, he built the Clark Corporation from scratch. The corporation had many subsidiaries. The single subsidiary father managed was, back in grandfather's time, one of the most promising. Yet even such a company incurred losses under father's management. If grandfather hadn't initially entrusted the Clark family business to my mother, father would likely have bankrupted the entire enterprise by now. I took a deep breath, staring grimly at the project proposal before me, an intimidating aura surrounding me. Father, as the head of that subsidiary, after years of causing losses instead of changing his ways, wanted to fire a key executive like VP Chen at such a time. He truly treated running a company like child's play. Upon receiving this news, my mother, exercising her rights as the primary shareholder, directly overruled father's decision and warned him, "If you're incompetent, stay out of it." Chapter 15. Temptation. After mother overruled father's decision, both the main corporation and subsidiary executives understood her dissatisfaction with him. When father received the news, he felt his pride trampled underfoot by mother. He wanted to retaliate, but lacking any actual shares or power, he was completely helpless against her. At this very moment, Ethan cluelessly went to father asking for money to solve his own problems. Father finally lost control of his temper, unleashing his fury upon Ethan. "You useless waste, what can you do besides spend money now? Your social media account is ruined. What money do you expect me to give you?" Ethan, reeling from the verbal assault, stubbornly persisted. "Dad, I really need the money now. If you can just give me the money, I can definitely make a comeback." Hearing Ethan's words, father nearly fainted from anger. "Money, money, money. All you know is asking me for money. What's the point of raising you if I had known you? We're such an ungrateful wolf, I should have strangled you right after you were born." Finished speaking, father raised his hand to strike Ethan. Ethan, seeing this, instinctively tried to dodge. Even so, father's slap landed squarely on his face. Slap. The sharp sound echoed in the room. A red, swollen handprint instantly appeared on Ethan's cheek. He clutched his face, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief. He hadn't expected father to actually hit him. "Dad, you hit me." Father looked at him, his eyes filled with disappointment and anger. "So what if I hit you? Hitting you is getting off lightly. How could I have produced such a disappointing thing? Like you get out." Father roared this last command loudly. I could hear his voice even downstairs. As Ethan stumbled miserably out of the study, he saw me downstairs, watching the spectacle with amusement. Rage surged within him. He started to curse me, but then remembered the beating he received when he burst into my bedroom earlier, and instantly fell silent. He took a deep breath, shot me a venomous glare, and turned to leave. Gradually, the online attacks against Ethan intensified. He desperately wanted a way out, but father was unwilling to help. Just when he was at his wit's end, his phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the caller ID. It was the brand representative for the lowbrow product. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then answered the call. "Hello, may I speak to Mr. Ethan Clark?" "Yes." Ethan's voice was muffled, but to the brand representative, it sounded like heavenly music, bringing a wide smile to his face. "Mr. Clark, have you considered our collaboration proposal? Our product is really suitable for you. If you're willing to endorse it, the commission will definitely not be an issue." The brand representative's voice held a note of urgency and temptation. Ethan pressed his lips together, still struggling internally. He knew that accepting this offer meant completely abandoning his image and dignity. But if he didn't accept, how could he continue maintaining his social media presence? How could he face the mockery and abuse? The next second, the brand representative's highly persuasive voice sounded again. "Mr. Clark, if you're willing, we can offer you an additional 1% profit share. What do you think?" Chapter 16. How is that expensive? Ultimately, Ethan Clark made his decision. He clenched his jaw, his voice trembling slightly as he said, "Okay, I agree." A few days later, returning home from work, I happened to see the car sent by the brand representative to pick up Ethan for the live stream endorsement. I paused, watching with interest as Ethan emerged from the villa. He wore casual clothes, his hair meticulously styled, but even so, it couldn't hide the exhaustion and dejection in his eyes. When Ethan saw me, a flicker of resentment crossed his eyes, but he didn't dare act on it, forcing a strained smile. "Sincere Clark, what brings you back?" I glanced at him sideways, my eyes full of mockery. "Ethan Clark, have you tested the quality of the product you're about to endorse?" Hearing my words, Ethan's face instantly turned ugly. He pressed his lips together and said stubbornly, "None of your business. The product I'm endorsing this time is absolutely fine," as if he would personally test that kind of vulgar product. I saw right through Ethan's thoughts, my gaze becoming even more mocking. I had kindly given Ethan a warning. If he insisted on courting disaster himself, then it was none of my business. Ethan paid no mind to my attitude, turned to the brand representative beside him and urged, "Let's go quickly, don't waste time." The representative immediately nodded obsequiously, opened the car door, and invited Ethan in. After getting into the car, Ethan glanced back at me through the window, his eyes filled with smugness. The car slowly drove away from the villa. I stood there, watching the receding vehicle, a cold smile playing on my lips. That evening, after finishing my studies, I opened Ethan's live stream. In the stream, Ethan looked haggard, but forced himself to interact energetically with the viewers. He had become a highly controversial figure on social media lately. After someone mentioned his upcoming live stream online, Ethan's broadcast room quickly flooded with people. I saw continuous comments asking what product he was endorsing today. He smiled mysteriously and said, "Everyone will find out soon enough. I guarantee it will surprise you." Shortly after, a staff member brought the product onto the screen. The moment I saw the product, I couldn't help but let out a derisive chuckle. It seemed Ethan truly would do anything for money. When the viewers in the live stream saw the product, the chat instantly exploded. "What is this thing? Ethan Clark, how could you endorse something like this? Ethan, bro, have you been kidnapped? Blink if you need help, call the police. Ethan Clark has been abducted by a vulgar brand. Only an illegitimate son like Ethan Clark would use this kind of lowbrow, kinky stuff. Unfollowing. I never thought you were this kind of person. I really misjudged you, Ethan Clark. Just get off the internet already." Watching the chaotic scene unfold in the live stream, I felt exceptionally pleased. Ethan saw the comments, his face turning livid. He suppressed his anger and explained to the viewers, "Everyone, don't misunderstand. I'm just helping a friend this time. This product is actually quite interesting. You can buy one and try it out. We all have different physiological needs. We should acknowledge our own needs. Following his statement, the initial wave of curses in the chat transformed into a split between proponents and opponents. Gradually, more and more people started buying the product Ethan was endorsing. His expression slowly shifted from ugly to relieved, and he patiently began reciting the pre-prepared sales pitch. At 9:30 p.m., just as Ethan thought the live stream was nearing its end, a large wave of comments suddenly appeared. What kind of material is this made of? Why is it so expensive? 89%. I think that's quite expensive too. The production cost for this thing should be very low, probably just a few bucks. What good product could Ethan Clark possibly endorse? It's so expensive, nobody should buy it. Seeing these comments, Ethan's face darkened, and he immediately retorted with displeasure. 89 is nothing. How is that expensive? Chapter 17. Quality Discrepancy. What do you people know? This product is made from imported materials. The cost is inherently high. Getting it down to 89 for everyone was already a huge effort. His statement caused another uproar in the live stream chat. Imported materials? Who are you kidding? I think you're just desperate for money. Exactly how could imported materials sell so cheaply? Do you take us for fools? Ethan Clark, you really dare say anything to make money? Facing the screen full of curses, Ethan calmly explained. It is made from imported materials. Quality guaranteed. Acknowledge your physiological needs. The brave enjoy the world first. A staff member immediately chimed in, quickly holding up a sign for another wave of promotion. The comments below the stream soon returned to normal, and Ethan, growing more enthusiastic, continued his pitch. Sales in the live stream soared, but I knew the time bomb had been planted. After exiting the live stream, I immediately dialed Miles's number. The phone was answered after just 2 rings. CEO Clark. Immediately deploy the Clark Corporation PR department. I want to see results within half an hour. Miles acknowledged at once. Understood. I'll arrange it right away. After hanging up, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the bustling cityscape outside, a cold glint in my eyes. Ethan Clark, let's see how you handle this mess. Half an hour later, Miles called back, confirming the PR department had executed the plan according to my instructions. I opened my social media feed and immediately saw the top 3 trending topics. Is imported material cost really high or low? Is $89 expensive or not? Domestic vs imported products, which is more reliable? Once these topics started trending, media outlets and marketing accounts cooperating with Clark Corporation immediately published numerous related discussion posts. The impact of this incident was neither massive nor insignificant. The issue of export products having better quality than those sold domestically was already highly sensitive. Now, ignited again by a live stream, the person at the center remained completely oblivious. I read the comments under the trending topics, a cold smile playing on my lips. Ethan Clark probably never dreamed he would push himself onto the cusp of public outrage because of a single live stream. As netizens' discussions heated up, the vulgar brand Ethan endorsed was also dug up. Netizens discovered that not only was the product quality inferior, but the brand also engaged in false advertising. Instantly, Ethan's live stream faced another barrage of boycotts and curses from countless netizens. Meanwhile, I had already instructed Clark Corporation's PR department to be ready for my signal, ensuring Ethan's reputation would be utterly destroyed. After finishing the stream, Ethan, completely unaware of the severity of the situation, was still reveling in the large sum of money he had earned. I gave a mocking smirk and headed upstairs. I needed to go to the study for an online meeting with the core members of Clark Corporation's PR department to strategize how to win this public opinion battle most effectively. After my mother took over Clark Corporation, the core personnel within were gradually replaced by her trusted confidants. Unless Mother or I gave the word, Father and Ethan wouldn't get wind of today's events. The online meeting lasted half an hour. After 30 minutes, thanks to the Clark Corporation PR department's efforts, The issue of export versus domestic product quality became the hottest social topic. This was an issue that concerned everyone, from the upper-class elite to ordinary citizens. Of course, as they focused on these issues, Ethan's image as a fool also became deeply ingrained in the public consciousness. Chapter 18. Descent. Before long, the story of Ethan Clark endorsing a vulgar product, making foolish remarks, and generally making a fool of himself spread throughout the school. People were discussing it in our school's group chat as well. Penelope Ainsworth, upon seeing the discussion, commented mockingly in the chat, "Ethan Clark was so desperate not to be looked down upon, frantically trying to prove himself, only to turn around and mock the very people who helped him climb up. Some people are just like that. They've been rained on themselves, yet they delight in tearing other people's umbrellas." Someone immediately echoed Penelope's words in the chat. Penelope's right. People like Ethan Clark aren't worth anyone's kindness. Every pitiful person has their hateful aspects. Isn't this just typical nouveau riche mentality? People like that are terrifying. They'll do anything for money, no morals, no bottom line. Watching the back and forth discussion in the chat, I silently turned off my phone screen. The discussion about Ethan wasn't limited to the group chat, it was rampant online too. The vulgar products he sold received backlash after consumer reviews. Many netizens reported that the product quality was completely substandard, causing itching and irritation, with no recourse for complaints. Then, several review bloggers, sensing the trending topic, immediately purchased the brand's products and sent them to specialized testing agencies. The results confirmed that the product's safety checks were indeed inadequate. Later, clips of Ethan passionately declaring during the live stream that imported products wouldn't have issues were edited into short videos and spread online for ridicule. Netizens began overwhelmingly accusing Ethan of being unscrupulous, harming the fans who trusted him. As for Ethan, seeing the tide of public opinion turn against him online, he became too scared even to go to school, fearing he'd be besieged and verbally abused by fans the moment he stepped outside. He took leave from school and lived at home in constant fear. When the online storm reached its peak, reporters, media, and fans unable to get to Ethan started trying to corner me. They hoped to reignite the online debate through me. But they didn't know I already had a plan to handle this situation. The reporters sent by the media were all blocked by personnel arranged by my mother. As for fans attempting to ambush me at the school gates, it was impossible. I always maintained a low profile, and most of the time, they didn't even know when I entered or left the school. After waiting several days and seeing no sign of the online fervor dying down, Ethan finally couldn't bear it anymore and went to Father. He told Father, "Dad, I never expected things online to turn out like this. The product quality issue is the merchant's fault. What does it have to do with me? Now fans and reporters are constantly harassing me. I can't even leave the house. Can you find someone to clear my name?" Hearing this, Father glared furiously at Ethan, his fingers trembling with rage. "You still haven't realized your mistake as a son of the Clark family. Why would you endorse such a vulgar product? Do you know how much negative impact this has had on the Clark brand? Furthermore, the product you endorsed was clearly inferior, yet you claimed it was made of imported materials. Weren't you deceiving consumers?" Ethan tried to argue, but Father cut him off sharply. "Don't say another word, I won't help you now. Figure out how to solve this yourself with that." Father turned and walked away, unwilling to speak further with Ethan. Ethan watched Father's resolute back, his heart filled with despair. He knew he had truly caused huge trouble this time, but what he didn't know was that Father, having been utterly incompetent for so many years, possessed no actual connections to use for clearing his name anyway. Chapter 19. The illegitimate son's shame cornered and desperate, Ethan chose self-rescue, releasing an apology video. In the video, he looked haggard, his eyes red and swollen, appearing as though he hadn't slept properly in days. Facing the camera, he spoke hoarsely. "Hello everyone, I'm Ethan Clark. Regarding the recent events, I sincerely apologize to everyone. The product I endorsed had quality issues. It's my fault for not doing thorough research beforehand, leading to everyone's disappointment. I apologize for betraying your trust, and I apologize to those friends who experienced problems after using this product." As he spoke, tears streamed down his face. Some netizens, seeing his apology video, were genuinely moved. Minor bloggers, seeing an opportunity in this incident, jumped in to gain attention, presenting Ethan's situation from their perspective. They argued he was actually quite pitiful, a young master from a wealthy family forced to endorse products at a young age to earn money. If the Clark family had provided for him, would he have fallen so low? As discussions of this type grew, the online hatred towards Ethan began to subside somewhat. Just as the situation seemed about to cool down, I had the Clark Corporation's PR department drop another bombshell, revealing that Ethan Clark was an illegitimate son. This revelation instantly thrust Ethan back into the eye of the storm. Netizens started expressing sympathy for me, saying that as the legitimate son of the Clark family, I had constantly been overshadowed by the illegitimate Ethan, and now had to endure so much criticism because of him. Furthermore, regarding father previously taking Ethan to network, most of those contacts were from minor families on the periphery of the elite circle. They hadn't known Ethan was illegitimate and had always assumed he was the Clark family's second young master. With the controversy reignited, I had someone start leaking details about Ethan's past behavior at school. Before being brought back to the Clark family, he lived in an ordinary environment and attended a regular school. Not only were his grades at the bottom of the class, but he also failed to conduct himself properly, even leading other underachieving students to bully weaker classmates. Later, a student who had been bullied by Ethan came forward and recounted their experience. At the end of their description, they asked other netizens, "What did I do wrong back then? Why is it that the person who bullied me back then, after making another mistake, can be forgiven so easily? Who will speak up for the suffering I endured?" He self-righteously tells everyone to face their physiological needs, while simultaneously looking down on us for buying these things and making dirty money without conscience. Is he completely blameless? Attached at the bottom of the post were old photos of Ethan and pictures of the original author covered in bruises from the bullying. Upon seeing this post, netizens' sympathy for Ethan vanished instantly, replaced by anger and condemnation. They flooded the comments, demanding Ethan take responsibility for his past actions and apologize to those he had harmed. Even more prevalent was mockery directed at Ethan. They ridiculed him for being an illegitimate son who was hypocritical, having experienced hardship himself been rained on, yet tearing down others' means of protection, tearing others' umbrellas. They clamored for the fans who initially supported Ethan to delete their comments, mocking them. How could Ethan possibly possess the aura of a true young master? Would a real heir stoop to endorsing such products just to make dirty money? Chapter 20. Meeting again, Ethan became the object of nationwide ridicule, causing significant damage to the Clark brand's image. Mother, aware that I was secretly pulling the strings behind these events, saw that Ethan's reputation was beyond repair. She confiscated his phone and had his social media accounts deleted. She ordered Ethan to return to school and take his final exams. When Ethan went back to school, the looks he received from everyone were even more contemptuous and scornful. 2 days later, during the school's final exams, Ethan unsurprisingly finished dead last. From then on, his status and quality of life within the Clark household plummeted drastically. Initially dissatisfied, he tried approaching father to improve his situation, but father, terrified of being implicated himself, kept his distance, avoiding him completely. Since my class's average score ranked high in the grade, the students naturally received praise from the teacher. I seized the opportunity and offered to treat everyone to a celebratory meal. Ethan initially didn't want to attend this gathering, but how could I let him miss the upcoming drama? I had Helen Carter arrange the largest private room at the club for our class celebration. Everyone drank and celebrated together. Later someone, perhaps having had too much to drink, suddenly shouted, There aren't any pretty girls here. Drinking isn't fun. I subtly glanced at a waiter standing nearby, giving him a look. The waiter immediately understood and stepped out. Not long after, when there was a knock at the door again, numerous pretty young ladies entered the private room upon invitation. These women wore sexy, revealing uniforms, their figures alluring. They walked directly towards our group upon entering. Soon, everyone's attention converged on the young woman in the center. I gave a mocking smile. Was this the female lead's halo effect? Even after Victoria Hayes had fallen to being a working girl, she could still so easily capture everyone's attention. Sitting in the corner, Ethan's face changed instantly upon seeing the familiar figure. The last time he had seen Victoria was in the main hall of the Clark residence, where she had been forced into a humiliating situation. He never expected to see her again, under these circumstances, dressed in revealing clothes among a group of women. Wearing a practiced smile, her posture and movements deliberately seductive. Ethan clenched his fists tightly, his nails digging deep into his palms, yet he seemed oblivious to the pain. His eyes were filled with astonishment and disbelief, as if everything before him was an illusion. How he wished this was just a nightmare, that upon waking everything could return to how it was. But reality was cruel. Victoria Hayes was truly here, appearing before him in a way he had never imagined. Sitting next to me, Penelope Ainsworth looked at the group of women and turned to me quizzically. "Since when did you start playing these kinds of games?" I smiled and shook my head, saying meaningfully, "The point isn't how I'm playing, the point is who's among them." Penelope looked at me, her almond eyes filled with confusion. I asked nonchalantly, "Do you remember the girl, Victoria Hayes, who accused me alongside Ethan Clark at my grandmother's birthday banquet not long ago?" She paused, stunned, then quickly recalled the events of my grandmother's party. My eyes narrowed slightly, a chilling voice escaping my lips. She was a poor student I sponsored. I paid for all her living expenses and tuition fees, yet she publicly stood on the moral high ground, forcing me to acknowledge that illegitimate half-brother, Ethan Clark. As I said this, the image of Victoria's impassioned speech back then flashed in my mind. She had said, "Sincere Clark, are you even human? Your own brother wandered outside for 16 years, and now that he's finally home, how can you be so ruthless and refuse to acknowledge his identity?" Now, after all this time, I brought this pair of lovers together again. I wondered what kind of sparks would fly between them. Chapter 21. Suffering from the past life, I raised an eyebrow, smiling as I turned to look at Ethan sitting nearby. "Ethan Clark, your girlfriend is standing right there. Why don't you call out to her?" Since they parted ways at the Clark residence, they hadn't seen each other once. Now that I had specially arranged for them to meet in such a lively setting, surely they should thank me. Ethan's face turned livid. He pressed his lips tightly together, saying nothing. He stared at Victoria in disbelief, his heart filled with anger and disappointment. He hadn't expected Victoria to appear here, let alone in such a manner. I turned my gaze meaningfully towards Victoria, the curve of my lips widening unconsciously. Helen had told me that Victoria's work at the club had been difficult lately. A 40-year-old nouveau riche uncle, Mr. Thornton, had taken a liking to her. Although the man was greasy, he played rough. Victoria had now fully assimilated into the club's life. She wanted to refuse the uncle, but unfortunately he was too powerful and had essentially claimed her by force, leaving her unable to escape. Her current standing in the club depended entirely on this man. Without him, given her history of stealing other women's clients, she would have been torn apart by the others long ago. She hadn't expected to see Ethan Clark at the club, so I could clearly see the pleading in her eyes as she looked at him. She hoped he could rescue her from this hellhole. When Ethan met her gaze, his eyes were filled with cold indifference. "She's not my girlfriend. I don't know her at all." In reality, I knew Ethan said this only out of fear of becoming a laughingstock again if he acknowledged her. Hearing Ethan's words, Victoria's face instantly turned deathly pale. She looked at Ethan in disbelief, her eyes filled only with utter despair and sorrow. I gave a mocking smile, watching the unfolding drama with amusement. Everything today was also part of my plan. Although Victoria and Ethan had been under my surveillance these past days and had no private contact, I still worried that the male and female leads of this redemption novel might rekindle their old flame and team up against me again. After this test, I was certain they truly no longer loved each other. After the women poured us a few drinks, the group decided it felt crowded and awkward, asking the waiter to escort the ladies out. That night, we celebrated until midnight. When I left, Helen came to see me off. She told me, "Mr. Clark, Mr. Thornton, who keeps Victoria, found out she wasn't content and was still moonlighting behind his back. As soon as Mr. Thornton got the news, he rushed over to the club. Before he went in, I saw the small whip he was holding. The darkness in my eyes deepened further. I knew perfectly well that Victoria's night would be rough again. Seeing these two scumbag man and scum woman suffer made my mood improve significantly. "Helen, you did well. Your salary is doubled this month." Hearing my words, Helen's face lit up with joy. "Thank you, Mr. Clark. It's what I should do." I nodded and turned to get into the car waiting by the roadside. As the car slowly drove away from the club, I watched the vibrant night scenery outside, my mind inevitably drifting back to the events of my past life. In that life, Victoria and Ethan, to torture me, sent me to a mental institution, arranging for the nurses to torment me day and night. Just as I was about to fall asleep at night, someone would jolt me awake with an electric baton. When I was hungry, they gave me spoiled food. They let the other mental patients torture me, tear my hair, cut my skin with knives, forcing me to listen to my own blood drip, drip, dripping from my body. I was nearly driven insane in that asylum, and later I was sent to a research table and tortured to death. Once Victoria and Ethan have experienced all this, I will also send them to that mental institution, letting them fully experience the suffering I endured in my past life. Chapter 22. Fate and Retribution. Later that night, when Ethan returned to the Clark residence, distraught and lost, it was already past 10 o'clock. After being taken away by the 40-year-old uncle, Victoria was whipped until her body was covered in wounds. Mr. Thornton's reputation for cruelty was well known in certain circles. The women he kept usually ended up either dead or insane, so I could foresee that Victoria's end would undoubtedly be grim. The next day, as the sun rose as usual, my assistant appeared again at the breakfast table with documents requiring my signature. "CEO Clark, these are the project documents that need signing today." I calmly reached for the files he handed over, carefully reviewed them, confirmed the details, and signed my name. Mother came down for breakfast just as I was about to leave for the company. She said, "Sincere, you handled this matter very well. Mom is looking forward to the day you fully take over the Clark Corporation." I smiled at Mother, my eyes filled with determination. "Mom, I won't disappoint you. In my hands, the Clark Corporation will only become stronger. Mom believes in you." After her affectionate words, Mother came over, adjusted my collar, and then let me leave for the company. In my past life, Mother died heartbroken because of me. This life, by taking over the Clark Corporation early, I could lighten the burden on her shoulders. Life continued day by day. 3 days later, just as I returned home, Ethan blocked my path. He glared at me maniacally, demanding furiously, "Sincere Clark, were you reborn? Did you live this life once before?" I looked at him indifferently, my eyes icy. "Ethan Clark, what madness are you spouting now?" He reached out and grabbed my sleeve tightly. Just as I frowned in disgust, my ever-present assistant stepped forward swiftly and kicked Ethan away. This time, after being knocked down, he didn't cry out in pain. His eyes, bloodshot and stubborn, fixated on me, his face contorted with madness. It shouldn't be like this. I was supposed to return to the Clark family smoothly. I am the true heir of the Clark family. Why is everything completely different from the dream? Hearing this, I instantly understood. He had dreamed of the past life. In the previous life, he framed me, ruined my reputation, tore apart the Clark Corporation, and ultimately seized control. Now this life was entirely different from the last. How could he still be dreaming of power? I looked at the man sprawled nearby, scoffing, my eyes filled with cold contempt. Ethan Clark, even daydreaming has its limits. How could someone with no ability and no vision like you ever deserve to be the one in charge? The true faces of the male and female leads from the redemption novel, once stripped of their final layer of pretense, were truly ugly. Although I said this, I was still concerned that if Ethan had dreamed of the past, he might follow the old trajectory and team up with Victoria again to oppose me. That very afternoon, I arranged for Ethan to be sent to the same mental institution where I had suffered so much torment in my past life. In that life, I couldn't eat or sleep properly, enduring a fate worse than death. This life, it was his turn to experience it. After dropping Ethan off, Miles reported back to me. CEO Clark, Ethan Clark seems truly insane. When he arrived at the asylum, he kept pointing frantically at the institution's sign, raving about how this place was supposed to be for you, asking why it was him instead. I listened to the report without looking up, continuing to review project documents. The asylum director observed his condition and said the man is severely ill. He even asked if the Clark family would object if they accidentally caused his death. He's just an illegitimate son who can't be brought into polite society. If he dies, he dies. Who would object? I stated this flatly, then paused in my work. But don't let Ethan Clark die too easily. I want him to wish he were dead. Understood. Miles responded respectfully and left the office. After he left, I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking the bustling city below, a strange sense of satisfaction washing over me. This life, I had finally accomplished what I set out to do. A week later, Helen came to report on work. As she was about to leave, she mentioned Victoria. CEO Clark, Mr. Thornton's people watching Victoria, sent word that she's been tortured to the point of being half dead. Should we intervene? No need. Let fate take its course. This was Victoria's fate and her retribution. After my indifferent words, Helen immediately understood my implication and replied smartly, "Understood. I will handle any loose ends cleanly." 5 days later, Helen sent a message. Victoria Hayes was dead. Upon receiving this news, I felt no significant emotional fluctuation. Victoria's death, to me, was merely the resolution of a problem. Only with her dead could the events of the past life be truly prevented from happening. As for when Ethan Clark would die, that depended on his fate. 1 year later, I officially took control of the Clark family, becoming its head. I began building my own business empire,